100 facts about the forest after the fire to fall asleep to. Segment 1. The First Whisper Green. Let us tell you a story about what happens after the end. After the roar has faded and the heat has bled back into the earth, what remains is not an emptiness, but a quiet, profound waiting, a canvas of charcoal and ash, soft and deep. And here, in this stillness, the first chapter of resilience is written not with a shout, but with a whisper. This ash, this fine gray powder, is not just debris. It is a nutrient repository. The fire has transformed locked-up minerals in the wood and leaves into a readily available fertilizer. It's a paradox. From consumption comes nourishment. Look here. This is fire moss. Its name tells its story. Specialized spores can survive the intense heat, sometimes lying dormant in the soil for years, just waiting for the cleared canopy and nourishing ash to signal that it's their time. They are the first pioneers, the quiet colonists of the burn. And beside the moss, often within days or weeks, come the wildflowers. They are called fire followers. Species like fireweed, whose feathery seeds travel incredible distances on the wind, are drawn to the open, sun-drenched land a fire creates. They don't just survive here, they thrive. Those blackened trunks standing sentinel, they are called snags, and they are far from dead in an ecological sense. They become apartment complexes for life. Wood-boring beetles detect the chemical scent of stress from miles away and are often the first animals to return. The beetles, tunneling into the softwood, attract woodpeckers. You might hear the gentle, methodical tap-tap-tap of a black-backed or three-toed woodpecker, species specially adapted to feast in burned forests. Their excavations then create nesting holes for other birds who cannot make their own. With the canopy gone, sunlight, the currency of life, now pours directly onto the forest floor for the first time in decades. This solar well fuels a phenomenon known as a herbaceous pulse, a rapid explosion of grasses, ferns, and flowering plants that can be more lush and diverse than the understory that was there before. This new green blanket does a crucial job. It holds the soil. The roots of these pioneering plants stitch the earth together, preventing the precious ash and soil from washing away in the first rains. They're the land's first bandage, tender and green. Some trees, like the lodgepole pine, have cones sealed with a resin that only melts in the intense heat of a fire. They are called serotinous cones. For years, they hang on the branches as sealed vaults of life. Then, the fire passes through, the resin melts, and the cones open, releasing their seeds onto a bed of perfect, prepared soil below. Those seedlings don't just grow anywhere. They often cluster near logs and snags. Why? Because these nurse logs provide shelter, retain moisture, and, as they slowly decay, continue to feed the next generation. The parent tree, even in death, nurtures its children. So this quiet, ashy landscape is not a graveyard. It is what scientists call early cereal forest. It is the first vital stage of ecological succession. The predictable, beautiful process by which a forest rebuilds itself, layer by layer, community by community, over decades and centuries. Hashtag segment 2, the unseen network. The first green is a promise, visible to any who look. But beneath the surface, in the cool, dark world of the soil, another kind of magic is unfolding. A silent, cooperative network that is the true foundation of the forest's return. The real recovery begins not with seeds, but with spores. Miles of fungal filaments, called hyphae, survive the fire safe in the deeper soil. They are now reawakening, sending out their thread-like networks to do a vital, ancient trade. These fungi form partnerships called mycorrhizae, literally fungus root. They wrap around or penetrate the tiny rootlets of the new fireweed and pine seedlings. In exchange for sugars in the plant, the fungi provide something the seedlings desperately need: water and nutrients, especially phosphorus, gathered from far wider than the roots could reach alone. This network is so vast and interconnected, scientists have a name for it: the Wood Wide Web. A single gram of this forest soil, less than a teaspoon, can contain kilometers of these fungal threads, all linking plants together in a cooperative community. And when these fungi fruit, they give us a sign of their hidden work. The mushrooms that emerge after rain, often bright morels or other cup fungi, are the fruiting bodies of this vast underground network. They are the blooms of the underworld. That charred wood isn't just a physical shelter. The charcoal itself, stable and porous, becomes a perfect habitat for beneficial microbes and fungi. It acts like a coral reef in the soil, a complex city where life can colonize and thrive, slowly breaking down the tough wood. The first rains after a fire are profound. The water, which might once have run off a hard, leafy floor, now soaks deeply into the ash-loosened earth. But the water carries something new, the chemical signature of smoke. Remarkably, some plant seeds are triggered to germinate specifically by the compounds found in smoke and charred wood. Those first tender leaves are not like the leaves that will come later. They're called seed leaves or cotyledons. They are part of the seed's original packed lunch, unfurling to begin photosynthesis. The first true forest leaves, with their unique shapes, are still a story waiting to be told. The new growth attracts the first nomads. Birds like sparrows and juncos arrive to feast on the seeds of the fire followers. Their droppings, as they perch on the snags, bringing more seeds from distant, unburned places, further enriching the new tapestry of life. Listen closely. That faint buzz is not the forest of old. It is the sound of solitary bees and other native pollinators, drawn mile by mile to the banquet of wildflowers. With no hollow trees yet for nests, they burrow into the soft, pithy centers of certain fire-adapted plants or into ground itself, becoming new residents. This fallen giant is now a nurse log in truth. It moderates the temperature, traps precious moisture, and as it decays, a process led by our fungal partners, it creates a raised, fertile bed called a rotten log microsite. Here, the next generation of hemlocks or firs will find the most protected and nutrient-rich start in life. Segment 3. The New Canopy. The pioneer plants did their vital work, holding the soil and softening the landscape. Now, a new architecture begins to rise. The stories shift from the ground to the spaces between, as the forest begins to dream of a canopy again. Notice the shape of these young trees. They are not like the tall, straight giants of an old forest. They're often shrub-like, with branches growing low and wide. This is their strategy to capture every possible photon of the abundant sunlight before their neighbors grow tall enough to shade them. This is a time of fierce, quiet competition. The pine seedlings, growing quickly, sacrifice with strength for speed. The first seedlings nearby grow slower, but their shade-tolerant needles are already planning for the future, for the day when the pine's canopy will close above them. The forest is growing in multiple timelines at once. As these young trees grow, they create something crucial, microclimate. Their bodies break the wind, their needles soften the rain's impact, and their collective shade lowers the soil temperature by critical degrees. They are no longer just individuals surviving. They are collectively rebuilding an atmosphere. The snag apartments are now fully occupied. Where woodpeckers pioneered, now tree swallows, bluebirds, and nuthatches move in. These cavity nesters are called secondary users, and their presence signals a shift from a landscape of insects to a landscape of vertebrates, of song and flight. The fireweed, having painted the hillsides pink, now sends a final signal. It blooms from the bottom of its stalk to the top. When the last flower at the very tip opens, it marks not an end, but a transition. Its work is nearly done. It will soon release a cloud of silky seeds to make way for the next act. Now, the shade-tolerant shrubs begin their advance. Salal huckleberry and Oregon grape, which may have sprouted from hidden, fire-surviving roots, begin to push through the meadow. They are the understory of the future forest, patiently waiting in the wings for the light to soften. Decay accelerates. The nurse log, once solid, is now a spongy, crumbling world of its own. This process, called nitrogen fixation, is carried out by bacteria in the soil and on the roots of certain plants like alder. They pull nitrogen from the air and convert it into a form that feeds the entire plant community, enriching the soil for centuries to come. Larger herbivores now venture in. Deer and elk are drawn to the nutritious, protein-rich new browse. Their grazing shapes the plant community, and their movements along new trails help disperse seeds in their fur and droppings. They're the landscape's gardeners, tending as they feed. Not all new life is welcome to the young trees. Insects like gall wasps lay eggs in the tender branches, and the tree responds by growing protective, often ornate, chamber around the larva. These galls are not typically fatal. They are part of the new economy of give and take, a small tax paid to the insect world. Look at the length of the shadows now. A few years ago, at this hour, the ground was in flat light. Now, the land is textured with shade. This is a most profound change. The forest is no longer just a flat plane of life. It is regaining its third dimension. It is becoming once more a complex, layered world. And so, the architecture returns. Layer by layer, creature by creature, the empty space between the earth and sky is being filled. Not with single story, but with a multitude, each depending on the other, all growing toward the light. Segment 4, the quiet tangle. The race of the sky continues, but now a new phase begins. It is not just about growing upward, but about growing together. The space between the trees begins to fill with a quiet tangle, a gathering of lives that will define the forest's character for 100 years. This stage has a name, the stem exclusion phase. The canopy of the fastest-growing trees, the pines and aspens, is beginning to close. The intense sunlight on the forest floor is now a dappled memory. For many of the slower, shorter plants below, this is a time of intense competition for light. The pioneers begin their graceful exit. The fireweed, having flourished in the sun, now finds its leaves yellowing in the shade. Its legacy is not in its own permanence, but in the soil it built and the shelter it gave. Its billions of wind-borne seeds will seek out the next distant burn, completing its ancient cycle. Listen to the new sound in the wind. It is not the roar through bare snags, but a softer sigh, a brushing sound as young crowns and branches begin to touch. This physical contact is called crown shyness in some species, where trees adjust their growth to maintain a small boundary, a whisper of personal space in the crowd. Not every starter survives. This is a time of self-thinning. Crowded too close, some saplings succumb, not a flame but a shade to insect attack, or to simple lack of resources. Their fallen bodies return immediately to the soil, feeding their siblings. The forest is editing its own story, choosing its protagonists. Vertical stratification begins. We can now clearly see distinct layers. The emergent pioneers, the shade-tolerant trees rising in the understory, and the shrub layer. Each layer creates a unique habitat, a different world for insects, birds, and mammals. The one-room home is becoming a multi-story dwelling. These are not just paths. They are forest highways, created by deer, elk, and even bears return to forage on berries. These trails compact the soil in specific lines. They become channel for water runoff, routes for seed dispersal, and curiously, they can guide the pattern of where new trees successfully root, shaping the forest layout. The nurse log's final gift. As it completely decays, it leaves a long, linear mound of rich soil called a duff hummock. Often, you'll find a straight line of mature trees growing atop these mounds, a ghostly outline of the fallen giant that cradled them, visible decades later. The abundance of insect life now supports a new tier of predators. Orb weaver spiders build intricate webs in the openings between trees. Salamanders find cool, damp homes under the increasing leaf litter. The food web, once simple, is now a complex net of who eats whom. The marks of daily life appear. A porcupine may gnaw on the bark for its inner cambium. A bear might scratch a signal on a trunk. These are not wounds of destruction, but inscriptions of residence. The forest is no longer a recovery site. It is a living community with its own diaries written in tooth and claw. The quality of the quiet has changed. The open, buzzing silence of the burn is gone. It is replaced by a deeper, more absorbed silence. The sound of a multitude of leaves intercepting sound of life breathing in the shadows. It is a quiet not of emptiness, but of fullness, a world now densely occupied. Segment 5. The shadows deepen. The race for the sky has been won by the fastest. Now a great, green ceiling stretches overhead. Below, the world transforms into a different kind of place, a realm of filtered light, of constant damp, of slow and patient decay. This is where the forest memory is forged. The trees that won the race now undergo a metamorphosis. Their growth shifts from outward to inward. They invest energy in strengthening their trunks, thickening their bark against future insects and fire, and growing deep, anchoring taproots. They are preparing to become the elders. This carpet is the duff layer. It is the forest's living ledger. Here, every fallen needle, every piece of broken twig, is logged and processed by an army of decomposers. Fungi, mites, springtails, and earthworms. This slow, constant fall and breakdown is how the forest banks its energy, building capital for the future. In the deep shade, the mosses triumph. They are the masters of low light and high humidity, painting every available surface in velvety green. They act as a living sponge, holding hundreds of times their weight in water, regulating the microclimate of the forest floor, and providing a nursery bed for the tiniest of seeds. Some life here is given up on sunlight entirely. Plants like Indian pipe are mycoheterotrophs. They contain no chlorophyll. Instead, they tap directly into the wood wide web, stealing nutrients from the fungal network connected to the trees. They're the forest's pale ghosts, living proof of the interconnectedness of all things. The old snags are entering their final, most valuable stage. As hard snags, they resisted decay. Now, as soft snags, their heartwood rots, creating crucial hollows for larger residents. A fisher, a raccoon, or even a small owl might find a den here. The standing dead now hold the most life. The nurse log's transformation is nearly complete. It is now a biological legacy, a linear mound of soil so rich it is called false floor. The seedlings growing on it are literally rooted in the history of the forest that came before, a direct lineage from the old world to the new. This cool, damp world is the kingdom of the amphibians. Salamanders, with their permeable skin, thrive here like nowhere else. They are vital predators of insects and slugs, and their presence is a key indicator of a healthy, moist, and chemically balanced forest floor ecosystem. The understory plants have fully claimed their domain. Ferns, like the lush sword fern, dominate. They are ancient plants, perfectly adapted to the shade, their fiddleheads uncurling each spring in a timeless ritual. They are the constant, green breath of the forest floor. The true shade kings are now asserting themselves. A hemlock seedling in this deep shade may grow less than an inch per year. It is an exercise in profound patience, investing minuscule resources over decades, waiting for a gap to appear in a canopy above, a chance that may not come for 100 years. It is the forest's long-term bet. The feeling here is ancient, but the forest is still young. It has achieved what ecologists call a closed canopy state. The frantic energy of rebirth has been channeled into the slow, stable processes of growth, decay, and waiting. It is a deeply resilient system now, not just recovering, but enduring. Segment 6. The gaps in the ceiling. In a closed canopy forest, time seems to move with the patience of the trees themselves. But the stability is an illusion. The ceiling is not permanent. And when it breaks, not by a sweeping roar, but by a single local event, an entirely new chapter erupts in a burst of light. This event is called a gap dynamics. A single tree, perhaps weakened by age, disease, or a windstorm, has finally surrendered. Its fall is not a tragedy. It is the most important renewal event in a mature forest. It is a localized rebirth. The falling tree does more than open the sky. Its roots tear up the soil, bringing deep, mineral-rich subsoil to the surface, a process called pit and mound topography. The pit where the roots will collect water. The mound of earth will be a new, well-drained planting bed. The forest floor is now sculpted in 3 dimensions. This sunlit gap is a time capsule, awakening ancient memory. Seeds that have lain dormant in the soil for decades, sometimes centuries, can now germinate. The seed bank, a buried archive of the forest past, is suddenly unlocked by the warmth and light, bringing back species not seen in this spot for generations. The gap becomes an instant hotspot of activity. Pollinators, drawn from the meadow edges, zoom into this new sunlit room. Hummingbirds, their iridescence flashing, defend patches of blooming fireweed that may resprout. For a moment, the early days of the burn are recreated in miniature. The fallen tree is given a new title, a nurse log in situ. But its role is even greater now. It becomes a diversification log, creating a gradient from sun-baked top to shaded, damp underside. Each inch along its length will host a different community of mosses, fungi, seedlings, and insects. For the patient understory trees, this is their moment. The hemlock that grew an inch a year for decades will now, in the sudden sidelight, put on a foot or more growth. It is literally stretching toward its long-awaited chance to join the canopy. The gap is a doorway, and the candidates are lining up. The disturbance reshuffles the animal community. The red squirrel who nested in the fallen tree is displaced. A garter snake finds a new home in the cool cavity of the root pit. A deer wanders in to browse the sudden flush of green. Real estate is liquidated and claimed anew in a rapid, quiet flurry. Not all growth here is slow. Gap specialists like fast-growing hardwood sprint upward, trying to capture the light before the conifers can close the hole from the sides. This creates a new kind of competition and ensures the future canopy will be a mix of species, not a monoculture. The gap itself changes over time. Ecologists call it gap phase succession. First comes a herbaceous flush, then the shrub thicket, then the race of saplings. The hole in the ceiling will slowly close on the sides over 20, 50, 100 years. But the legacy of diversity it created below will persist for centuries. So the forest is not a monotonous blanket. It is a dynamic quilt, a mosaic of patches in different stages of growth and recovery, all created by these small individual endings. The strength of the forest lies not in avoiding death, but in how it uses it, how a single fall of a single tree writes the next paragraph for 100 others. And as the sun moves, the spotlight shifts. Tomorrow, it may illuminate a different gap, a different story. This is a perpetual, quiet rhythm of the mature forest, not a static monument, but a living, breathing, patchwork being, forever renewing itself from within. Segment 7, The Legacy of Flame. Time continues its patient work. The gaps have filled, the canopy is high and complex. And yet, if you know where to look, the fingerprints of the beginning are still here. The fire was not an eraser, it was the first author, and its signature is woven into the very body of the forest. This veteran snag is now a biological legacy structure. It has stood for decades since the fire, and its value has only increased. It may be one of the last remaining physical pieces of the pre-fire forest, a direct skeletal link to the world that was. This nutrient-rich soil at the base of the snag has a name. It's called ash bed effect legacy soil. The concentrated minerals from the burn would leached here for years, creating a super-fertilized patch. The largest trees in the stand may very well be rooted in these ancient ash beds. Look at the bark of the dominant trees. Many bear healed fire scars on their lower trunks. Crescent-shaped wounds now covered over by decades of growth. These trees survived the last fire as saplings. They are living archives, their rings telling precise story that year, that season, of the drought that came before. The animal community now depends on these legacies. A pileated woodpecker, a bird of deep, mature forests, needs these large, soft snags to find its primary food. Carpenter ants. No fire-created snags, no woodpeckers. No woodpeckers. Fewer cavities for owls, ducks, and pine martens. The ancient event still feeds the present. The footprint of the fire is written on the ground. Those straight, subtle ridges you see, they are the ghost lines of fallen logs, the final remnants of the nurse logs that shaped the forest's early pattern. The layout of today's trees is a map drawn by the arrangement of downwood a century ago. This mix is a fire's legacy. An even-age stand from the initial regrowth has now been diversified by decades of gap dynamics. But the foundational cohort, the pines and firs that rose first, create the uneven structure. The fire created the conditions for the maximum biodiversity we see now. Some of the very first fire-following plants have never left. Their seeds persist in the soil bank, waiting for centuries. When a new gap opens, they may rise again, a ghostly echo of the first green flush, a living memory of the burn in the midst of deep shade. The forest's complex early cirral structure, born from the intense disturbance of fire, is now considered one of the most biologically rich and rare habitats in some regions. It is not just a recovery stage. It is a cherished, dynamic ecosystem type in its own right, a masterpiece of sustained diversity created by catastrophe. This hollow is now a den tree. It may shelter a bear in winter, a family of raccoons, or serve as a crucial winter roost for bats. The process that created it, fire, followed by decades of fungal decay, is a slow, natural engineering project that provides housing that young, perfect trees simply cannot. The cycle is quietly preparing to turn. This mature forest now holds immense stores of carbon in its wood and soil. It has created its own moist, cool microclimate that resists mild fire, but it has also accumulated fuel. The legacy of the last fire is a forest that is both resilient and, in the fullness of geological time, temporary. It holds the seeds of its own transformation. Segment 8. The Unseen Engineers. We have followed the story in trunks and canopies, in fire scars and sunlit gaps. But to truly understand the forest's resilience, we must shrink our gaze. For below our feet and in the hidden crevices of bark and wood are the unseen engineers. They do not shape the forest in years, but in moments. Their work is the glue of everything. The fungal networks we met as pioneers have now become a megalopolis. A single mycorrhizal network can connect hundreds of trees across acres, not just the same species, but of different ones. Through this common mycorrhizal network, trees have been shown to share not just nutrients, but chemical warnings about insect attacks or drought stress. The decomposers of the forest's stomach and lungs. Fungi and bacteria break down complex compounds like lignin in wood, a process almost no animal can do. In doing so, they respire. In a healthy forest, the soil itself breathes, releasing carbon dioxide back into the air in a slow, constant exhalation that fuels the global cycle. The decomposers are not just microscopic. Saproxylic insects, those dependent on dead or decaying wood, are a vast and diverse guild. Stag beetles, horntail wasps, and countless larvae tunnel, chew, and fragment the wood. They are the primary demolition crew, breaking the monolithic log into pieces manageable for microbes. This is a springtail. Millions exist in every acre of forest soil. They are detritivores, feeding on fungal hyphae and decaying matter. In their constant grazing, they regulate fungal growth, aerate the soil with their movement, and are themselves a crucial food source for spiders, mites, and centipedes. They are the sheep of the underground pasture. And then there are the mysteries, like the slime mold, neither plant nor animal nor true fungus. It is a single-celled organism that can coalesce into a complex, intelligent-searching form to find food. It is a reminder that the foundational rules of life here are older and stranger than we often imagine. This process of wood decay has a specific, sweet scent, the smell of geosmin, produced by soil bacteria. It is the scent of healthy decay, of transformation. This log is no longer wood. It is becoming humus, the stable organic part of soil that can hold water and nutrients for millennia. A tree does not end at its roots. Its rhizosphere, the zone of soil immediately around its roots, is a bespoke ecosystem. The tree exudes sugars and acids to feed specific bacteria and fungi it prefers, essentially farming its own microbiome to help it access specific nutrients locked in the soil. The soil food web is as complex as the one above. Nematodes, microscopic worms, are either predators of bacteria, fungi, or other nematodes. Their interactions create a balanced economy of consumption and nutrient release, ensuring no single group of decomposers dominates. It is a teeming, unseen democracy. The health of this hidden world dictates what grows above. The diversity of soil microbes directly influences the diversity of plant species. A rich, complex soil biome suppresses plant diseases, fosters stronger root growth, and allows for a more resilient and varied plant community. The forest is grown from the bottom up. So, while we walk in the cathedral of the trees, the real work is happening in the crypt below. Every breath of this forest, every new leaf, every ounce of growth, is mediated by an ancient, intricate partnership between root and fungus, bacterium and beetle. They are the quiet, relentless engineers, turning death into architecture and memory into sustenance. Segment 9. The Future in the Seed. The architects have built their towers. The engineers have woven their networks. Now, as the seasons turn, the forest turns its energy to its ultimate act of faith and future-making. It is time to package life into its most portable, durable form. It is time to create the seed. The abundance of seeds, or mast, is not constant. Many trees engage in mass seeding cycles. They produce a colossal, synchronized bounty of seeds every few years, overwhelming seed predators. The chickadee can't eat them all. The surplus ensures that some will always escape and find their way to the soil. Every seed is a masterpiece of evolutionary design. Wings for wind, hooks for fur, nuts for caching, fleshy fruits for flight. Each is a tiny spaceship, carrying not just an embryo, but a starter pack of nutrients and a set of instructions written in DNA, waiting for the correct combination of light, moisture, and scarification to begin. Most seeds are destined to fail. They land on rock, in deep shade, or are found and eaten. This is the great, quiet lottery of the forest. A single mature tree may release 1 million seeds in a year. The hope is that 1, maybe 2, will become a tree to replace it. It is a strategy of profound abundance and profound sacrifice. Some seeds rely on forgetfulness. The squirrel, driven by instinct to cache food for winter, becomes a forest's most effective planter. The acorns it fails to relocate, and there are always some, are perfectly buried, protected from fire and frost, and placed in a ready-made germination site. The tree uses the animal's hunger to ensure its future. Fruit is a contract. The plant offers a sugary, nutritious reward. In exchange, the bird or bear consumes it and carries the indigestible seed away, depositing it with a packet of natural fertilizer. The seed is not just dispersed. It is planted. This ancient partnership built the patterns of forests across continents. On a dry, windy day, the forest releases its aerial fleet. Pine and fir seeds, attached to papery wings, are lifted into convective currents. They can travel miles from their parent tree. This is how a forest slowly migrates, how it colonizes new disturbances, how its genetics are spread across the landscape over centuries. And then, the wait begins. Many seeds enter a state of enforced dormancy. They require a specific signal to break their sleep. The scarification of fire, the stomach acid of a bird, the long chill of winter followed by the warm soak of spring. They are tiny time capsules, programmed to open only when the time is right. Germination is a quiet explosion of cellular activity. The seed imbibes water, swelling until its coat splits. The root, the radicle, is always the first to emerge, driven by gravity to anchor the new life before a single green shoot seeks the light. Priority 1 is to connect to the network below. When conditions are perfect, a seedling cohort emerges. These are all the same age, a new generation standing shoulder to shoulder. They will thin each other out over the decades. But for now, they are a community, a wave of new life that will define the forest structure 100 years from now. So look up. What seems like stillness is a moment of release. The forest is casting its future to the winds, to the creatures, to the soil itself. In every one of these drifting specks is a potential for a giant, for a canopy that will shade generations yet unborn. It is an act of hope, repeated billions of times over. Segment 10, The Eternal Cycle. We have followed the story from the first whisper of moss to the towering cathedral of wood, from the hidden networks to the seeds cast on the wind. Now we arrive at a quiet truth. The forest after the fire is not a path to somewhere else. It is not returning to what it was. It is simply being what it is now. And in that being, it holds the entirety of the cycle, past, present, and future, within itself. In deep winter, the metabolism of the forest slows to a near standstill. Sap retreats, insects diapause, and growth ceases. This seasonal pause is not death. It is a necessary reset. The cold stratifies seeds, kills pathogens, and stores water as snowpack, a slow-release reservoir for the coming spring. The forest dreams. The legacy structures are most visible in this stillness. That snag, the remnant of the last great fire, now serves as a snow gauge, a thermometer, a monument. It intercepts more snow on its windward side, creating a unique microsite. It is still shaping its environment, centuries later. All the potential for the next explosion of life is held here, in these buds, wrapped in protective scales. The preformed leaves and flowers wait in perfect stasis. They were built last summer, a memory of the past season already encoded and waiting to unfold. The forest carries its future on the tips of its branches. The soundscape has distilled to its essence. You can hear the creak of wood in the cold, the trickle of water under ice, the wind over the ridge. This auditory clarity is itself a kind of nutrient, a space in which the slow processes of decay and preparation can be felt, if not seen. The freeze-thaw cycle is a quiet, physical engineer. Water seeps into cracks in bark and rock, freezes, expands, and fractures. This action breaks down substrates, prepares seed beds, and continues the slow, inexorable work of turning stone into soil and wood into earth. Life is not gone. It is streamlined. The tracks tell stories of urgent search and quiet survival. The predators and prey are still here, their interactions now etched clearly on a white page of snow, a stark reminder that the economy of life and death never truly pauses, only changes form. This swell circle is the first sign of the turn. The dark trunk absorbs the sun's weak heat, melting the snow from the trunk outward. Here, in this tiny revealed earth, a spider might become active, or a snowdrop might bloom weeks before surrounding meadow. The forest awakens in patches, from the inside out. The evergreens are the guardians of the cycle. Their year-round photosynthesis captures the faintest winter light, and their canopies catch the snow, moderating its impact on the delicate soil life below. They are the constant, the thread of continuity that runs through the dormant phase. And so, the cycle is closed, yet open. The water from the melting snow is the same water that evaporated from last summer's leaves. The nutrients released in decay are the same atoms that once built a giant that fell a century ago. The forest is not a line, but a wheel. It does not progress. It revolves. Resilience, then, is not the absence of change or disaster. It is the deep, ingrained knowledge of the cycle. It is the soil's memory of ash, the seed's patience for fire, the tree's scar over a wound, the network's hidden sharing. A forest that has known fire does not fear it. It understands fire as it understands winter, as a season of its long, eternal life. A necessary breath out, before the breath in. The forest, after the fire, is complete at every moment. In the ash, it held the future trees. In the mature canopy, it holds a memory of the flame. It is a system that has learned to carry its own history within its body, to use every ending as a beginning. It does not sleep to escape the world, but to gather the strength to greet it again, transformed. Thank you for listening to this story of resilience. May you carry with you the forest's quiet truths, that endings are woven into beginnings, that stillness holds profound activity, and that time, with patience, heals all things into something new. Good day or good night, depending on the time you are watching.